Tucker, obviously the big injury at the quarterback position is Trey Lance. I read on Twitter that it might be a career-threatening injury. I know that doesn't affect us for waivers, but what have you been able to suss out as both the long-term prognosis for Trey Lance, as well as how are you advising handling him going down before we go to Curtis?
Yeah, it's a tough one because even if the injury doesn't, affect his career long term, just the situation he is affects his career long term. This is now a kid who's third overall. He's going to be entering his third year in the NFL next year with really no experience. And, they're going to have to talk about picking up a fifth year option at the end of next year. The 49ers are really handcuffed because they pretty much went into this year ready to turn the franchise over from Jimmy Garoppolo into Trey Lance. And as of right now, you've spent the number 3 overall pick and pretty much have gotten zero value from him through his first 2 years. And we all know the best value you can have in the NFL is a productive quarterback on a rookie contract. And right now they're losing that value. With every game he doesn't play, that pick looks worse and worse. And I wonder how quickly they might be willing to move off him. I mean, you look forward just to next year alone. I don't know if they want to keep him around, considering he hasn't been able to stay healthy, wasn't really successful when he was on the field. And this is a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, not only now, but in the future. So if they think either sticking with Jimmy G long term is an option or they go out and find a veteran quarterback, I do think Trey Lance's time in San Francisco is certainly in jeopardy. And as someone who owns Trey Lance in multiple fantasy football leagues, I'm worried about my outlook moving forward too. I think there are some other options at quarterback right now, guys who have impressed in the first couple weeks. But yeah, it certainly is worrisome, the situation that he's in and the 49ers are in.
My takeaway on that is Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to play a lot better than he did last year for them to revisit re-signing him. A lot better than he's played the last 2 years. While he's been better than Lance, it hasn't been by much, which is why they were willing to move off him for Trey Lance. But I do agree with you. The problem is it's a lot easier to need a quarterback than it is to get a quarterback. And that's why they spent 3 picks to move up to get him. And it really is the kind of miss, if you do miss, that can cost people their jobs. Tucker, any other injuries at the quarterback position you're looking at? If not, we'll send it over to Curtis so that he can discuss who he likes at waivers at the quarterback position.
Yeah, the only other two situations I'm monitoring is Justin Herbert has that fractured cartilage in his ribs, which I think a lot of people have forgotten about because that came all the way back on Thursday, well before the Trey Lance injury. But that seems like something he's going to play through, whether or not he's limited in his ability to throw the ball down the field. I mean, we saw that deep bomb he threw at the end of the game, so I think he's going to be fine. Maybe they take it light and run the ball a little bit more in the next couple weeks. And then also James Winston playing with 4 fractures in his back. I just don't know how much longer he can go playing like that, especially after he threw 3 interceptions against Tampa Bay.
Yeah. So at the quarterback position, the big point, the big thing to consider here, the first instinct of most people is to take the backup when the starter goes down, especially when the backup is someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, who has played in the league. Curtis, is that what you were advising, or do you have another strategy in mind at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I'd like to know your view on this situation after I discuss it. But yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo is one of those quarterbacks that I believe is benefiting from being coached into a good position. I don't think he's going to provide a huge ceiling for A, the team, and B in fantasy. So he's a guy I'm not really looking at. The 49ers play a little bit slow because they have so much motion. So it does take them a little bit longer to get snaps off. A guy you had mentioned last week was Marcus Mariota. I didn't love the matchup, and he actually got a couple of touchdowns in the game. I do love this matchup against the Seahawks this week. That defense has looked atrocious early on. Even though the points haven't been there to show up on the scoreboard, they've had some pretty unsustainable red zone luck going in the first 2 weeks. So Mariota's averaged 7 fantasy points on the ground in his first 2 games. That he's a threat to run. He's going to give you that floor, and at some point, Art Smith will figure out Kyle Pitts. And even if he doesn't, he's still got Drake London, who looks absolutely amazing as well. So I do like the Falcons' passing attack, especially this week against a Seahawks team that just doesn't keep control of the ball at all. They're giving up over 10 minutes in time of possession a game. So the Falcons should have the ball. And then back to the well with old Jared Goff. He put up some passing touchdowns this last week. I know he's going to a hostile environment in Minnesota, but I didn't think that defense showed very well in the first half yesterday. So if you can't get Mariota, Goff would be another guy you could go to who plays better indoors.
Yeah, you asked me to comment on it. So in my season long, where I went I think I went 7-3 for the second straight week. I have a main event team that I drafted, but someone else handles waivers, and I pushed him I had drafted Mariota and he dropped him week 1, and I said, "Could you please get him back?" So, and then Lance went down. I may have mentioned last week that I think Mariota is the cheapest of the Konami code quarterbacks, the guys with rushing and passing upside. So the rushing gives you a nice floor. And if you hit a ceiling with passing, you can have a really good week. They've run the ball with him a lot. Again, I tend not to be as week to week with things, especially early. I kind of make my decisions more based on what I want. Putting the most talent on my roster tends to be my overwhelming opinion rather than chasing an individual week. So the way I would handle Marcus Mariota if you don't have him is I would say, if you have Trey Lance, I'd rather have Marcus Mariota than Jimmy Garoppolo. But I would be careful not to overpay for either of them unless your team is really doing good. And that's the one spot that you need to strengthen, which, again, that's a main event team that's 2-0. Thankfully, we have Mariota now. But I would be willing to spend in those situations where, but what I don't want to do is spend 100 fab on a quarterback when, a guy like Goff might be 20 and then end up, if I don't have a great team and then, some running back who I would really improve my team comes up on waivers in a week or two and I don't have enough to get him. That would be my thoughts, Curtis.
Perfect.
Your thoughts.
Yep. One part I didn't mention, that was last week when we were talking about the Dak Prescott injury. I think a little bit different situation because Prescott was coming back, so I was fine going week to week in that absence, whereas Trey Lance is not coming back. So I would be looking at a more stable full season option. So Mariota, like you said, cheapest of the Konami guys left. Maybe Justin Fields gets dropped. You could luck into that. But I'm being a little more aggressive with Mariota if I drafted Trey Lance versus Dak Prescott.
I like it. And I was more coming from how you said you didn't like Mariota's matchup this week.
Yeah.
That was more where I was coming from, where if it's the right guy, I will go get him even if I have a bad matchup. But that's why we do this show, to make each other better as well as giving information to our opponents.